Commander Hawk Jun stared at the readings on his command screen and felt his confidence crack like ice under pressure. The 12 massive warships of his scouting fleet had expected to find a single world of primitive humans cowering in fear. Instead, his sensors showed something impossible. The third planet from the star was covered in cities that glowed from space. The fourth planet had domed settlements across its red surface. The moons of the gas giants sparkled with mining stations and orbital platforms. Hundreds of metal constructs moved between worlds like busy insects. "Commander," his weapons officer reported with barely hidden panic, "I count over 300 artificial structures in this system. These humans have spread across their entire star system." Hawk Jun had conquered 47 worlds for the Zerion Dominion. Never had he seen a species expand so far while remaining unknown to the Empire. The Dominion had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They knew every advanced species. They controlled every important world. Humans were supposed to be nothing. A footnote. A species so primitive they had not even achieved faster-than-light travel when the Dominion first catalogued their world 300 years ago. "Send the standard message," Hawk Jun ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. "Full surrender terms, they have 72 hours to respond." On the third planet, Admiral Subin received the alien transmission in the command center buried deep beneath Sol. The message came through quantum channels the humans had only recently learned to use. The voice was cold and mechanical, translated by computer systems. "People of Earth," the message began, "you are now subjects of the Zerion Dominion. Your species will serve the Empire as workers and soldiers. Resistance will result in the complete destruction of your worlds. You have 72 standard hours to surrender unconditionally." Subin had spent her entire career preparing for this moment. Humanity had known about the Dominion for 50 years, ever since their deep space probes detected the massive empire expanding through the galaxy. They had watched in horror as world after world fell to the alien conquerors. "Get me the science. Council," Subin ordered her communications officer, "and connect me to all fleet commanders immediately." Dr. Won-ho arrived at the command center within an hour, his research team carrying data tablets and portable computers. The xenobiologist had spent decades studying intercepted Dominion communications, learning everything possible about humanity's future enemies. "Admiral," Won-ho reported grimly, "our analysis is complete. The Dominion has conquered or destroyed over 200 intelligent species in the past 1,000 years. They do not negotiate. They do not show mercy. Species either submit completely or face total extinction." Subin nodded. This matched everything they had learned from their secret observations. "What about their military capabilities?" "Overwhelming," Won-ho admitted. "A typical Dominion fleet carries enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. They have weapons that can boil away oceans. Their smallest ships are larger than our biggest battleships." But Won-ho's expression showed something else. Hope, perhaps, or determination. "However," the scientist continued, "they follow very predictable patterns. Every conquest follows the same plan. Overwhelming force, massive formations. They expect complete surrender after the first demonstration of power." Captain Mi-young entered the command center still wearing her flight suit. Her stealth frigate had just returned from a dangerous reconnaissance mission to observe the alien fleet up close. "Admiral," Mi-young reported, "I've analyzed their ship formations and energy signatures. These aliens are powerful, but they think like a machine. Everything is organized. Everything follows patterns. They move in perfect lines and communicate on predictable frequencies." Subin studied the tactical displays showing the alien fleet positions. 12 massive ships arranged in a precise geometric formation, moving slowly through space like they owned everything they saw. "They've never fought anyone like us," Subin realized. "Every species they've conquered probably tried to fight them the same way. Big ships against big ships. Formation against formation." Mi-young smiled grimly. "But we don't fight fair, do we, Admiral?" For 3 centuries, humanity had developed in isolation while preparing for this moment. They had spread across their solar system not just for resources but for survival. They had built their military not to match other forces, but to use every advantage their creativity could imagine. Engineer Ji-woo joined the meeting by video link from the asteroid belt, where she commanded the mining operations that were secretly humanity's greatest weapon. Admiral, the conversion projects are complete. We have over 400 cargo ships ready for combat modification. The aliens will see civilian freighters right up until we open fire. The plan was insane by any military standard. Humanity would disguise warships as civilian vessels, hide weapons in cargo containers, and turn their entire solar system into a trap. No civilized military force would expect such tactics. But humans had learned long ago that survival mattered more than civilization. Dr. Won-ho, Subin asked, what do you think will happen when we refuse their surrender demand? The scientist consulted his research. Based on their historical patterns, they will launch a punitive strike designed to destroy our orbital installations and break our will to resist. They expect us to surrender immediately after seeing their power. And if we don't surrender, then they will likely call for reinforcements and attempt to destroy our entire species as an example to others. Subin looked around the room at the faces of humanity's defenders. These people had spent their entire lives preparing for a war. They knew they could not win through conventional means. But humans had never been conventional. Send our response on all frequencies, Subin ordered. Make sure every ship in their fleet receives it clearly. The communications officer activated the quantum transmitters. Subin's voice carried across space to the waiting alien fleet, calm and respectful, but absolutely firm. To the representatives of the Zirian Dominion, she began, we thank you for your message and have considered your terms carefully. After full deliberation, humanity must respectfully decline your offer of surrender. She paused, letting the words sink in. We have lived, free for our entire history, and we intend to remain free. We suggest you reconsider your presence in our system. This is your only warning to leave immediately and peacefully. Commander Hak-jun received the human response with shock that quickly turned to rage. In 3,000 years of Dominion expansion, no species had ever refused the first surrender demand. The audacity was beyond his understanding. Prepare for immediate assault, he ordered his fleet. These primitives need to learn the price of defying the Empire. As the alien warships began moving toward Earth, Admiral Subin activated humanity's defense network. Across the solar system, hidden weapons powered up and disguised ships prepared for battle. The war for humanity's freedom was about to begin. Commander Hak-jun led his fleet toward Earth with complete confidence. The 12 Dominion dreadnoughts moved in perfect formation, their massive hulls bristling with weapons that had shattered planets. He expected the human resistance to collapse. Within minutes of seeing true Dominion firepower, the first surprise came when his sensors detected over 200 vessels moving to intercept his fleet. But instead of warships, the readings showed cargo haulers, mining vessels, and transport ships. Hak-jun almost laughed. The humans are sending their civilian fleet against us, his tactical officer reported with amusement. They must be truly desperate. Destroy them quickly, Hak-jun ordered. We will make an example of their foolishness, then proceed to their home world. But as the Dominion ships opened fire, the human vessels did something impossible. The cargo ships suddenly accelerated far beyond what civilian engines should allow. The mining vessels revealed hidden weapon ports along their hulls. The transport ships launched clouds of missiles that moved with military precision. Engineer Ji-woo watched from the command bridge of what had once been a simple freight hauler. For 6 months, she had supervised the secret conversion of hundreds of civilian ships into disguised warships. Civilian hulls hid military engines. Cargo holds contained railguns and fusion torpedoes. Even the smallest mining ship now carried weapons that could punch through alien armor. All ships, this is Ji-woo, she broadcast to the hidden fleet. Remember, we don't need to win, we just need to make them bleed. The space around Earth erupted into chaos as the human ships attacked from every direction at once. Instead of the organized formations the Dominion expected, the humans scattered like a swarm of angry insects, each ship following its own unpredictable course. Pilot Dongmin led a squadron of fighters that had launched from hidden bases on the moon. His ships were tiny compared to the alien dreadnoughts, but they moved like nothing the Dominion had ever seen. Instead of flying in neat formations, the human fighters twisted and rolled through space in patterns that seemed random, but somehow avoided most enemy fire. "Remember your training," Dongmin called to his pilots. "We're not trying to look pretty. We're trying to stay alive and hurt them as much as possible." His fighter dove between the massive legs of a Dominion dreadnought, firing its weapons at critical joints and sensor arrays. When alien fighters moved to intercept, Dongmin did something that shocked the enemy pilots. Instead of trying to escape, he turned his fighter directly toward them and accelerated to ramming speed. The Dominion pilots, trained in civilized combat, tried to avoid the collision. But Dongmin's fighter was equipped with an explosive charge designed for exactly this moment. The resulting explosion destroyed 3 enemy fighters and damaged 2 more. "That human just committed suicide to kill our pilots," one Dominion commander reported in disbelief. "These creatures fight like wild animals." Tactical Officer Yujin coordinated Earth's defense from the hidden command center on Luna Base. Her screens showed the battle raging across near-Earth space, with human ships engaging the aliens in ways that violated every rule of proper military conduct. "Admiral," Yujin reported to Subin, "our ships are using asteroid fields for cover and drawing enemy vessels into the debris zones. The aliens are taking heavy damage from impacts with space rocks." This was another human innovation the Dominion had never encountered. Civilized species fought in open space where their superior firepower could be used effectively. Humans hid behind asteroids, used debris as weapons, and turned the battlefield itself into an ally. One human captain deliberately rammed his damaged cruiser into a healthy Dominion destroyer rather than retreat for repairs. The impact crippled both vessels, but the human crew evacuated in escape pods while the alien crew died in the wreckage. "These humans have no sense of honor," Commander Hawkjun raged as his perfectly organized fleet fell into confusion. "They fight like pirates and terrorists." But the real shock came when Dr. Yunseo activated humanity's most secret weapon. The quantum physicist had spent 5 years developing technology that could influence stellar activity. As Dominion reinforcements arrived in the outer system, she sent a carefully calculated signal toward the sun. The star responded with a massive solar flare that erupted directly toward the incoming alien ships. The electromagnetic pulse disabled half their electronics and blinded their sensors. Ships that had been moving in perfect formation suddenly found themselves flying blind through space filled with deadly radiation. "Impossible," Hawkjun whispered as he watched his reinforcements scatter in panic. "They have turned their own star into a weapon." The battle turned into a nightmare for the Dominion forces. Human ships that should have been destroyed kept fighting. With jury-rigged repairs and improvised weapons, pilots who should have retreated instead launched desperate attacks that somehow succeeded through pure audacity. Captain Mi Young led her stealth frigate on a mission that exemplified human tactics. Instead of engaging in direct combat, she used her ship's cloaking device to approach a damaged Dominion cruiser. Rather than attacking its weapons or engines, she targeted its communication array and sensor systems. The alien ship found itself flying blind and deaf through a battlefield it could no longer understand. When it tried to rejoin its formation, it accidentally collided with another Dominion vessel, damaging both ships and creating more debris for humans to hide behind. "Admiral," Yujin reported as the battle reached its climax, "enemy forces are beginning to break formation. Their commander is trying to withdraw to safe distance." But Subin had one final surprise prepared. "Dr. Yunseo, execute Solar Protocol 7. The physicist activated her stellar manipulation device for a second time, but this configuration was different. Instead of creating a single large flare, she triggered a series of smaller solar storms that created corridors of deadly radiation throughout the inner system. Human ships, equipped with special shielding and navigation systems, designed for this exact situation, could navigate through the solar storm corridors safely. The Dominion fleet, caught completely unprepared, found their escape routes blocked by walls of lethal radiation. Commander Hawkjun watched in horror as his superior fleet was systematically destroyed by an enemy that refused to follow any rules of civilized warfare. Ships that should have been invincible were crippled by ramming attacks. Formations that had conquered hundreds of worlds were scattered by weapons hidden in civilian vessels. Even the star itself seemed to be fighting against them. All ships, he finally ordered, his pride shattered. Emergency withdrawal. Full retreat to safe distance. Of the 12 dreadnoughts that had entered the Sol system, only 3 limped away from Earth's gravity well. The rest had been destroyed or disabled by an enemy that fought with the desperation of creatures that had nothing left to lose. As the surviving Dominion ships fled toward the outer system, Admiral Subin addressed the human fleet. "This is only the beginning," she warned. "They will return with more ships and greater weapons. But today we have shown the galaxy something important." She paused, watching the alien ships disappear into hyperspace. "We have shown them that humans do not surrender. We have shown them that freedom is worth fighting for. And we have shown them that sometimes the smallest creatures can bite the hardest." Across human space, celebration was mixed with grim determination. They had won the first battle, but the war was just beginning. The Dominion would not ignore this humiliation. They would return with overwhelming force, determined to crush the species that had dared to make them bleed. But humanity was already preparing for the next phase of their desperate war for survival. If the aliens wanted to fight, humans would show them what real warfare looked like. News of humanity's victory spread through the galaxy like wildfire, carried by secret communication networks that the Dominion had never managed to completely suppress. For the first time in 3,000 years, someone had fought the Empire and lived to tell about it. Communications specialist Jin'e monitored the hidden frequencies from her station on Europa Base, translating dozens of alien languages as intercepted messages flooded in from across Dominion space. Her screens filled with reports that would have been impossible just weeks ago. "Admiral," Jin'e reported to Subin during their daily briefing, "we're receiving confirmation of uprisings on 17 different worlds. The Calathans on Xerion Prime have attacked their slave masters. The Mollusk Collective has seized 3 mining stations. Even the Vorthon, who have been enslaved for 800 years, are fighting back." Subin studied the intelligence reports with growing amazement. The Dominion's control had seemed absolute for so long that rebellion had become unthinkable. But humanity's defiance had cracked something fundamental in the Empire's foundation. "What's the Dominion's response?" Subin asked. "Panic," Jin'e replied with satisfaction. "Their communications are increasingly desperate. Regional commanders are requesting reinforcements from every sector. High Chancellor Vextar has recalled fleets from the frontier to maintain control of core worlds." On the capital world of Xerion Prime, High Chancellor Vextar convened an emergency session of the War Council. The ancient alien ruler had governed the Empire for over 1,000 years, and never had he faced a crisis like this. "The human infection is spreading," reported General Corex, his chief military advisor. "If we do not crush these primitives immediately, the entire Empire could collapse into chaos." Vextar's 6 eyes focused on the tactical displays showing rebellion spreading across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. "Commit the 3rd Fleet to the human system," he ordered. 300 ships under Fleet Admiral Korthax. "I want every human world burned to ash and their species erased from existence." But Admiral Subin had already realized that defense alone would never be enough. Humanity could not win by hiding in their solar system, while the Dominion gathered overwhelming force. They needed to take the fight to the enemy. "We're authorizing Operation Prometheus," Subin announced to her senior staff. "Our first offensive strike against Dominion territory. The target was Kepler 442b, a mining world where the reptilian Thecnari species had been enslaved for 3 generations. Intelligence reports suggested the world was lightly defended, its value lying in rare mineral deposits rather than strategic importance. Commander Tae-sung prepared his small fleet with the careful planning of a man who knew he might never come home. 12 human ships had been modified with captured Dominion navigation systems and stealth technology reverse-engineered from alien wreckage. They would have to travel deep into enemy territory, with no hope of rescue if discovered. "Remember," Tae-sung addressed his crews before departure, "we're not going there to conquer. We're going there to liberate. The Thecnari have suffered under Dominion rule longer than humans have even known aliens existed. They deserve their freedom." The journey to Kepler 442b took 2 weeks through hyperspace routes that human ships had never traveled before. Taesung's fleet stayed hidden in the sensor shadows of gas giants and asteroid fields, avoiding Dominion patrol routes marked on captured star charts. When they finally reached the mining world, Taesung was shocked by what they found. The planet's surface was covered with massive excavation sites that stretched to the horizon. Millions of Technari workers labored under the watch of Dominion overseers, their lives regulated by control collars that could deliver pain or death at the touch of a button. "This is not a military target," Captain Sora observed from her marine assault ship. "This is a concentration camp." The liberation of Kepler 442b became a masterclass in human warfare. Instead of the orbital bombardment that Dominion forces would have used, Taesung's fleet launched precise surgical strikes against control installations while avoiding civilian areas. Captain Sora led marine units in lightning raids that disabled the slave control systems without harming the Technari workers. Her soldiers moved through the mining facilities like ghosts, appearing suddenly to eliminate guards and destroy equipment before vanishing back into the tunnels. The Technari, seeing their oppressors defeated for the first time in generations, joined the fight with desperate fury. They knew the locations of every Dominion stronghold, every weapons cache, every communication center. What had been a precision military operation became a planet-wide uprising. Within 6 hours, Dominion control over Kepler 442b had completely collapsed. The garrison commander, faced with losing his entire force to creatures he had considered property, attempted to activate the planet's self-destruct system rather than allow the slaves to go free. But Taesung had anticipated this possibility. Human engineers disabled the destruction charges while Technari workers provided detailed maps of the underground facility networks. The would-be mass murderer found himself captured by the very beings he had tortured for years. What happened next shocked the galaxy even more than the military victory. Instead of claiming Kepler 442b as human territory, Taesung helped the Technari establish their own free government. Human ships left behind captured Dominion weapons and navigation charts, along with detailed technical manuals translated into the local language. "We came here to fight tyranny," Taesung explained to the newly elected Technari leadership. "We did not come here to replace one master with another." The unprecedented act of liberation without conquest sent shockwaves through both the Empire and the oppressed species throughout Dominion space. For 3,000 years, every conflict had been about dominance and control. The concept of fighting for someone else's freedom was revolutionary. Dr. Wan Ho, monitoring communications from Earth, documented 17 different first contact attempts from species seeking humanity's help. Underground resistance movements that had hidden for centuries suddenly emerged, begging for the secret to effective rebellion. "Admiral," Wan Ho reported, "we're receiving messages from the Quillian Commonwealth, the Free Asteroid Mining Collective, even isolated groups of escaped slaves who have been hiding in deep space for decades. Everyone wants to join whatever we're building." But the most significant contact came from an unexpected source. Deep in Dominion space, a group of high-ranking alien military officers transmitted a coded message directly to Earth's leadership. "We represent species within the Dominion military who have grown tired of serving as instruments of oppression," the message read. "We cannot openly rebel without dooming our home worlds, but we can provide intelligence, safe passage routes, and early warning of major operations. We request permission to aid your resistance movement." Subin realized that humanity's war for freedom had become something much larger. They were no longer fighting alone against an overwhelming enemy. They had become the catalyst for a galaxy-wide revolution that had been waiting centuries for someone to light the first spark. "Send a response to all resistance movements," Subin ordered Jine. "Tell them we stand ready to share everything we know about fighting the Dominion. Every tactical innovation, every technical breakthrough, every successful strategy. Freedom belongs to everyone, not just humans." As reports of successful uprisings continued pouring in from across the galaxy, Subin prepared for the Dominion's inevitable response. The Empire would not allow their authority to crumble without making a desperate attempt to reassert control. The Third Fleet was already moving towards Sol System, carrying enough firepower to crack planets and boil away atmospheres. Humanity's real test was still coming, and this time the Dominion would not underestimate their enemy. But now the humans would not fight alone. Across the galaxy, millions of beings who had lived their entire lives in slavery were looking toward a small yellow star and daring to hope that freedom might actually be possible. The fire of rebellion that humanity had lit was spreading beyond their ability to control or direct, and that, Subin realized, was exactly what they had hoped for from the beginning. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, the Zerion Dominion was collapsing like a structure built on rotting foundations. What had begun as a simple conquest of one primitive species had become the Empire's worst nightmare, a galaxy-wide revolution that spread faster than their ability to suppress it. Ambassador Jun Seo found himself coordinating the Free Stars Alliance from a massive space station built in the ruins of a former Dominion fortress. Representatives from 847 different species worked together in ways that would have been impossible just a year earlier. The liberation of the Andorian sector is complete, reported Commander Yoltera of the aquatic Mordesh species. 73 worlds have declared independence and requested alliance support. Junseo studied the tactical displays showing green zones of freedom spreading across the galaxy, like healthy cells replacing infected tissue. Each liberated world became a beacon for others, proving that the Dominion's control could be broken. Technari had contributed their mining expertise to build hidden bases in asteroid fields throughout former Dominion space. The Mordesh provided biotechnology that allowed Alliance ships to repair themselves during long voyages. Most remarkably, the energy-based Luxani had taught humans how to predict and control stellar behavior with unprecedented precision. Admiral Zubin, Junseo called through the quantum communication system. The Alliance fleet is ready for the final push toward Zerion Prime. We have representatives from over 200 species requesting permission to participate in the liberation of the capital world. Zubin, now commanding not just human forces but the combined fleet of the Free Stars Alliance, reviewed the tactical situation with growing amazement. The fleet gathering around Earth included ship designs from dozens of different species, each contributing their unique strengths to the coming battle. "This is not a conquest," Subin announced to the assembled fleet commanders during their final briefing. "We do not come as conquerors seeking to replace one empire with another. We come as liberators, fighting to ensure that every species has the right to determine its own destiny." The journey to Zerion Prime took the Alliance fleet through 17 different star systems, each one a former stronghold of Dominion power. But instead of the massive battles they expected, the fleet found world after world already in open rebellion against their former masters. On Zerion Prime itself, High Chancellor Vextar faced the complete collapse of everything he had spent 1,000 years building. Regional governors reported losing control of entire sectors. Military commanders refused to fire on civilian populations. Even his own palace guard had begun questioning orders. "My lord," reported his chief advisor with barely concealed panic. "The human fleet approaches with over 10,000 vessels from species we thought were extinct. Our own forces are deserting faster than we can count them." Vextar stared at the tactical displays showing the approaching Alliance armada, understanding finally that his empire had not been defeated by superior firepower, but by something far more dangerous, the idea that freedom was possible. "Activate the Null Protocol," he ordered desperately. "If the Empire cannot survive, then let the galaxy burn with us." The Null Protocol was, Fleet Admiral Korthax arrived in the Sol system with the largest military force ever assembled by the Zerion Dominion. 300 capital ships, 50,000 fighters, and planet-killing weapons that had shattered a dozen worlds filled space around Earth's solar system like a metal storm cloud. Korthax was the Empire's most ruthless commander, a veteran of 200 successful conquests who had never failed to crush resistance wherever he found it. His orders were simple and absolute. Erase humanity from existence and make their destruction visible across the galaxy as a warning to other potential rebels. "Begin full sensor sweeps," Korthax commanded from his flagship's bridge. "I want every human installation cataloged before we begin the extermination. Nothing must survive to inspire further rebellion." But humanity had not been idle during the months since their first victory. Chief Engineer Hyunwoo had converted the asteroid belt into the galaxy's most dangerous minefield, with explosives hidden in every floating rock large enough to conceal them. Mining stations that appeared abandoned actually contained automated weapon systems waiting for enemy ships to come within range. Admiral Subin coordinated humanity's most desperate plan from her command center deep beneath Earth's crust. The approaching Dominion fleet carried enough firepower to destroy every human world 10 times over. Conventional tactics would result in complete annihilation within hours. Dr. Yunseo, Subin called to the quantum physicist, is the stellar manipulation array ready for full activation? Ready, Admiral? Yunseo confirmed, though her voice carried the weight of what they were about to attempt. But I must warn you again, what we're planning has never been tested at this scale. We could destabilize the sun permanently. If we don't try this, Subin replied grimly, there won't be anyone left to worry about the sun. The battle began, with the Dominion fleet advancing in perfect formation toward Earth, their massive ships moving with the confidence of predators approaching helpless prey. Korthax expected to demonstrate overwhelming firepower and watch human resistance collapse in terror. Instead, Dr. Yunseo activated the stellar manipulation array with a power setting that made her previous efforts look like gentle breezes. The sun's magnetic field destabilized in a carefully controlled cascade, creating not one solar flare but dozens of them erupting at precisely calculated intervals. Solar storms began racing through the system in waves, creating corridors of deadly radiation that appeared and disappeared like doors opening and closing in space. The Dominion fleet, arranged in their traditional formation, suddenly found themselves scattered across a battlefield that changed every few minutes. Wing Commander Namjoon led humanity's fighter squadrons through these solar storm corridors with the skill of pilots who had trained for this exact scenario. Human ships could navigate the radiation fields using special shielding and navigation systems designed specifically for stellar warfare. All fighters, this is Namjoon, he broadcast to his pilots as they dove through a corridor of solar fire toward the alien fleet. Remember, we don't need to destroy them all. We just need to hurt them enough to break their confidence. The human fighters appeared out of nowhere, striking Dominion ships from directions that should have been blocked by deadly radiation. They would attack with desperate fury, then vanish back into the stellar chaos before enemy weapons could target them effectively. Korthax watched his perfect fleet formation disintegrate as ships tried to avoid both human attacks and solar radiation simultaneously. These creatures have turned their entire star system into a weapon, he reported to his superiors with growing disbelief. They are fighting us with the power of their sun itself. The turning point came when Captain Myung, now commanding the heavy cruiser Incheon's Fury, led a desperate assault directly at Korthax's flagship. Her ship had been equipped with a captured Dominion cloaking device and enough explosives to level a city. All ships, this is Myung, she broadcast on open frequencies as her cruiser accelerated toward the alien command vessel. Sometimes, the only way to win is to make sure nobody loses alone. The Dominion flagship's sensors detected the approaching human ship too late to avoid impact. Myung's cruiser struck the alien command bridge with enough force to crack both hulls open to space. The explosion that followed lit up the battlefield like a second sun. As both ships burned in the stellar fire, Myung's final transmission became the battle cry that human forces would remember forever. This is how humans say goodbye. We take you with us. The sight of their supreme commander's flagship destroyed by what they considered a primitive species broke something fundamental in the Dominion fleet's morale. Ships that had conquered hundreds of worlds suddenly found themselves questioning whether this battle could actually be won. Some Dominion commanders began ordering their ships to retreat to safe distance. Others argued that they should press the attack despite casualties. The perfect unity that had made the Empire invincible for 3,000 years began to crack under the pressure of human desperation. Admiral Subin seized this moment of confusion to launch humanity's final gambit. Every human ship in the system suddenly changed course and accelerated directly toward the sun, their crews apparently choosing mass suicide over surrender. The humans have gone insane, Korthax's replacement commander reported as he watched. Hundreds of vessels racing toward solar death. They are committing species-wide suicide rather than face defeat. The Dominion fleet celebrated what appeared to be the end of human resistance. But their celebration turned to horror when sensors detected massive energy buildups within the approaching ships. The vessels were unmanned, packed with antimatter charges and programmed for simultaneous detonation within the sun's chromosphere. Dr. Yuncio triggered the detonation sequence from her bunker on Earth, knowing that she was about to unleash forces that could be seen from neighboring star systems. The explosion, when hundreds of antimatter charges detonated simultaneously in the solar atmosphere, sent a directed blast of stellar material racing through the system at near light speed. The blast wave struck the Dominion fleet like the fist of an angry god. Ships that had survived the destruction of planets were instantly vaporized by the wall of superheated plasma. Those vessels lucky enough to be behind cover found their electronics fried and their hulls melted by radiation that turned space itself into an ocean of fire. Fleet Admiral Korthax died with his ship, consumed by the very star that humanity had turned into their ultimate weapon. Of the 300 ships that had entered Sol system, fewer than 50 survived to escape into hyperspace. The survivors carried with them a message that spread through the Dominion faster than any previous communication. Humanity had learned to make stars themselves into weapons of war. They destroyed our greatest fleet with their own sun, the fleeing commanders reported in panic. These creatures cannot be defeated by conventional means. They fight with the fury of cosmic forces. Admiral Subin watched the retreating Dominion ships disappear into hyperspace, knowing that humanity had won an impossible victory at a terrible cost. The solar manipulation had permanently altered their star's behavior, and the long-term consequences were impossible to predict. But they had proven something that would echo across the galaxy for generations. When pushed to the brink of extinction, humans would not go quietly into the dark. They would set the very stars on fire before they would kneel to tyranny. Send a message to all resistance movements, Subin ordered Jin'e. Tell them that the Third Fleet is destroyed. Tell them that the Empire can be beaten. And tell them that humanity stands ready to share the fire of freedom with anyone brave enough to fight for it. Across the galaxy, species that had lived in slavery for millennia looked toward a small yellow star and dared to believe that liberation was possible. The humans had shown them that even the mightiest empire could bleed, and that sometimes the greatest courage was simply refusing to surrender. Dominion's reign of terror was ending, and in its place something new was being born among the stars.